All right, what's going on, guys? Kyle here, and welcome to the Monday Mastermind. We're trying things out a little differently today. Today's our first official day that we are streaming live on both Facebook and on YouTube, and we are not streaming on Zoom. We'll see how this goes. Definitely, leave comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know if the feed is coming through, the audio, the video, all that good stuff. Today, because it is a little bit different, I've prepared a lesson for real estate sales training. Today, we're going to be talking about the top 10 mistakes that I made as a new real estate agent. And so I kind of did a lot of thinking back to when I first started in the general real estate business, and some of the things that I wished that I had done differently, or that I know now that I wish that I would have known then. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. I see a lot of agents make these similar mistakes, and it's kind of hard because it's funny because I might even tell you some of these things today, but I almost feel like sometimes you almost just have to experience the stuff for yourself before you end up making a change. And so anyways, for good or for bad, I'm going to go through, share with you guys the top 10 things that I made, top 10 mistakes that I made as a new agent. So hopefully that will help guide you and let you get to where you want to be a little bit faster. So the other cool thing, talk to me about kind of what you think about the actual quality of this. Just in case you're watching on Facebook, if you go to theMondayMastermind.com, it's going to take you to my YouTube page where the stream quality is actually higher. So if you are on Facebook, Facebook kind of limits the amount of, I guess they call it bitrate, that you can send to Facebook. So it's always going to be a lower quality stream. So if you want to get in the habit of seeing this as high quality as you can, I think it goes 1080p on YouTube, feel free to swing over to that platform. Just go to theMondayMastermind.com. It's going to take you to my YouTube page, and you'll be able to see the live video there, and you'll be able to click on it, send chat, all that good stuff. So what I want to actually do real quick before we get going is I want to see, because there's an app here where I can check the actual chat of what's going on. If you guys are watching this, type in the chat box. Just let me know how it's going so far. Can you hear me? Can you see me? I just want to make sure I don't go through an hour training and not have something set up the right way. So before we get into that, I'm looking here at the chat. I don't see anything coming through on this yet, but that doesn't mean that it's not working. So let's see here. I'm going to open up Facebook on my computer, guys. Bear with me. That's the joy of trying something new. So let's see here. All right. All right. Yep. Okay. Looks like it's going. Looks like everybody can see and hear it on my Facebook page there. Perfect. All right, guys. Well, very good. And then on YouTube, let me just do a quick check on there. There we go. Perfect. Thanks, Heather. Great so far. Good stuff. All right. Well, hey, it's working. That's, man, I really had my doubts. So this is pretty cool. You don't know the amount of work it took to actually figure out how to get the system going. So there's all sorts of different encoding programs you got to download. There's services you have to sign up for online. So, but it's worth it because I think, like I say, I think, to up the production value of this, bring you guys the best quality information. And, I think that it was necessary to switch off of Zoom. So anyways, guys, well, cool. So it sounds like I'm looking at YouTube right now. You guys can hear me and see me on YouTube. So that's perfect. We got 6 people, looks like, on YouTube right now. We got quite a bit on Facebook. Cool. All right, there we go. We are all set. All right, guys, cool. All right, well, then we're going to jump right in, guys, and we're going to talk about the 10 mistakes that new agents make. So, all right. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. And the first mistake that I see that new agents make is not setting up a business plan. So we've talked before about how important it is to set up your business plan. We've talked about how to set up your business plan. But I remember when I was a new agent, just getting started, I honestly didn't, I knew maybe what a business plan was, but I didn't actually think that it was that important. I almost thought like maybe I'm just wasting time sitting there writing stuff out. And also I didn't get specific enough with my business plan. I think that it becomes very important whether you're going into real estate as a full-time agent, or even if you're thinking of this as a second career, part-time, whatever it is, you've got to come up with a plan, and you got to put in there things like how much time you dedicate to this business, what your budget is going to be for lead generation types of activities, all that type of stuff, for systems, for your brokerage dues and fees. Like, you need to get really specific with all of that about what you want to see in your next 90 days and what you want to see in that first year. Those are probably the two most important parts to kind of plan for. And so you need to really get clear on what you're willing to do, and then also what your lead generation strategies are going to be, because that's the thing, is you don't want to overload yourself and try to do too much. And we'll talk about that as another mistake, but you need to be real clear that, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to spend my time. I'm going to do, 15 hours of prospecting per week. It's going to be, these hours on these days. And, this is how much I'm going to spend. This is what I expect to make, all that kind of stuff. You need to put it into your business plan, because then once you get your plan, you can start to work that plan, right? And what I always say is, because a lot of times too, the other mistake that people make with starting a business plan is they will create a business plan and then they'll never go back and look at it again. They just make it, when they first start, and then they don't ever go back. Maybe they look at it like a year later, but by then it's too late. You need to have that business plan where you can look at it, every single day, put it somewhere where you're not going to lose track of it. And then you want to work that plan, right? And that's not to say that if, you start working 2-3 months in and you obviously know that it's not working the way that you need to and you need to make adjustments, that's 100% fine. But I think what ends up happening is people come up with a great business plan to start with, but then they get sidetracked, they get off, they lose focus of it, they start doing something else, and you never know if that plan was effective or not effective. And so that was, something that early on, again, I didn't even have a business plan, but when I did start having a business plan, it was almost like a, you just work towards where you want to be. And, so I started out not having a plan, then I got a plan, but didn't use it. Now, finally, I literally run my business off of my business plan every single year. I come up with in the beginning of the year what I'm projecting, what I need to do, what I want to accomplish, what are my rocks, what are the things that are in the way stopping me from, having the success that I want, and how am I going to overcome those rocks? How long do I anticipate that it's going to take me to overcome those? Is it a 1 month rock? Is it a whole year rock, 6 months, whatever that is? But then also you can rank in order of importance, right? There's a real quick exercise you can do where you basically list out all of the things that you think that you want to do in your business, and then you're going to put a 1 to 10 by how much it will impact your business. Right? 10 being the most impact. If you did this, it's going to really help your business. 1 being not as much. And then you're going to put next to that the speed that it would take you to, see that to completion. And you're going to put that as a 1 to 10. And then you add those numbers up, and basically, whatever, if you look at it, I'm sorry, I don't want to confuse you. If it's not going to take you that long, you're going to put it as a 10. If it's going to take you a long time, you're going to put it as a 1. So that way, what ends up happening is, say if it's something super quick and easy to do, you put it as a 10. And if it has a high impact, you put that as a 10. So now you have a 20. You're going to just top grade it, right? And you want to go towards things that have the highest number. So if it's a 10, as far as the impact on your business, but it's, going to take you a long time, so maybe you put a 1 on that or a 3 or something. Well, it adds up as a 13. Well, maybe there's something that, is quick and easy. So it's a 9 on the speed and it's a 7 on the impact. Well, it's a 16. Go after that first, right? And so, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to, use that as your business plan as kind of like what you need to do next, right? And then once, say maybe you take care of that item and you see it to completion and now you feel good about everything. Well, now you go back and don't just do the next activity that you had originally put down, because now that you've done that new thing, you have new insight, new advice, new thoughts into like what would be next, right? Like, so say you did something and now it changes everything else that you made your original list on. You need to go back and regrade that list. Now things might be more important. Now other things might not take as long. So then go back, regrade it, and then do the next thing, right? And that's just how you kind of keep doing things. And so that's really how I kind of judge what I need to do next in my business. So again, that kind of goes hand in hand with a business plan. That's not the exact business plan. You got a business plan, and then you've got, the things that we just talked about as far as like what to do next. But all of that stuff I think is super important to kind of analyze up front to save time in the long run. So anyways, that's number 1. Number 2, not giving lead generation activities enough time to work. And I talk to tons of real estate agents, and I think we're all guilty of that, right? Like we want instant success. We want, everything right away. And, and so we'll like sign up for a service, or we'll do some kind of lead generation thing. Maybe, it's our efforts that are doing that lead generation. And then, we do it for like a month and then we stop because we didn't get, the results that we wanted. And so often in real estate, these things take time, right? Like, it takes for you to really judge the effectiveness of a marketing campaign, whether it's like a Facebook campaign or, some kind of prospecting, like maybe you're just going to start doing for sale by owners and expired phone calls. It takes time to get good at it, right? So that way you can be the most effective at it, to be efficient. It's going to take 3 to 6 months minimum. And so many people, they like, start something 2 weeks in or, a month in, and then they quit because they didn't see, the instant, lead come through or whatever it is. And that's just not going to be a good practice to have in your business. I think that again, when you're setting up your business plan, you need to budget out what you're willing to spend on it for, 6 months. And if you can't spend that over the course of 6 months, don't even start it. Right? Like I think you just, because it's almost like in my budget, whenever I create my budget each year, I have like a research and development part of my budget, right? Where it's just like money that I can kind of throw away if I had to, because I'm testing things out, and I might let things go a little bit longer because I have that extra cushion in my budget. That I wouldn't if I was just so strapped for money all the time that like, man, well, this didn't work. It's going to be easy for me to cut this off and I'm going to save money. Well, that's not super effective all the time, because now, you really, it's almost like when you sell a stock, like you don't lose the money till you sell, right? Like if you have a losing stock, you technically don't lose money until you've sold. It's the same thing with lead generation, right? Like, if you let something go too early, then you literally have lost that money that you invested. Whereas if you let it go through what you had originally planned, maybe you created that plan because you heard it worked for somebody else. And, like, I'm not saying just go out there and spend money for no reason, but when you make your plan, you're making the most educated decision that you can at the time, and you want to see that through. And so, make that plan with all of the information you have. Now, obviously, if something's just completely out of whack or something is, completely wrong, you made a big mistake or something like that, well, then obviously, but I just think that too many times real estate agents have that shiny object syndrome where, this lead generation seems great this month, and then you hear of something next month, you try that, and then you cancel this. It's like, man, if you keep going through that cycle, it doesn't work. Consistency is what works. So, all right, so that's number 2. Number 3, over-analyzing and researching, not taking action. So, there's a lot of researchers that, they just like, they are almost like paralysis by analysis. They just literally get paralyzed, to where they don't do anything because they feel like either they don't have the skills or they don't have the knowledge to do something. And let me just tell you, I learned very early on that if I was going to be like that, I was not going to be an effective real estate agent. There is just uh, too much that you just have to stumble across, or, make a mistake or whatever for you to move forward in this business. And if you're just waiting till you know that it's going to be right, or until you know that you're not going to be wrong, it's not going to happen for you. It's definitely because, real estate as it is a long-term business. It takes a while for you to really get some traction and to really get going on things. And if you delay taking action on stuff, it's just going to even make that process longer, which, for most people, that ends up being the straw that broke the camel's back, and ends up being the reason why they don't actually stick with real estate. Because now what might take 6 months to a year to be a good realtor could take 2, 3, 4, 5 years if you're not consistently taking action outside of your comfort zone. So you got to be willing to step forward, just make mistakes, learn from your mistakes, and just keep getting better. So that would be something that I would say that, I started picking that up probably about 6 months in. So it wasn't a long-term thing for me, but I know for a lot of agents, they just like they're 6 months in, and you ask like what they've done, and and they haven't done much. Or like they were like, well, I've taken this class and I've taken that class, and it's like, okay, well, great, but what have you done? Like, what are the different things you've tried? What are some of the things you've failed on? Like, so anyways, that's number 3. Number 4, not picking up the phone. And this doesn't mean just like when people are calling you. Hopefully, if you're getting phone calls, you're picking up the phone. But for sure, it's also outbound prospecting. So many agents, they want this like easy button where it's like, well, I'm gonna do Facebook lead ads, or I'm gonna do something to where like I want people to come to me, or I want them to send me a message. And they just don't pick up the phone consistently and just outbound call, right? Like, and I've got another mistake that we'll talk about here in a little bit that goes along with this. But, just picking up the phone is probably one of the most important things you can do in the real estate business. So if you're not consistently on the phone, literally using up those minutes, like I think at this point, probably everybody's got unlimited minutes, but like, if you aren't using your phone all the time to make outbound prospecting calls to friends, to family, to people you've met, to other agents, like whatever it is, like you've got to be out there prospecting. And doing it on the phone is typically the best way you're going to set up in-person stuff. It's typically the best way that you're going to stay top of mind to people. So make sure that you're picking up the phone and you're not scared to make the phone calls, right? Like, that you shouldn't be scared. If you're a new agent, don't be afraid to like make a phone call to people that, you might've been friends with 2 years ago, and just say, hey, like, I'm a new agent, but I know that we haven't stayed in touch. I want to do a better job. I'm committed to doing a better job. But tell me how things are going in your life, right? And then just start building that friendship up. Everybody can do that. It might seem awkward. It might seem, forced or whatever. It doesn't matter though. Like, even if they know maybe what your intentions are, like, oh, well, now this person's a realtor, now they're calling me. That's fine. Like, rebuild that relationship. You have to start by making that first phone call. And if you don't do that enough times, like maybe if you feel everybody is going to say that to you, then again, you just get stuck not doing anything. And you're kind of like waiting for stuff to happen, and it won't ever work. So you just got to start. Picking up the phone is usually the quickest, easiest, most cost-effective method of getting prospecting going early on. All right, not tracking your efforts and results daily. This is a very important one. I think that, this goes along with your business plan. If you've got a business plan, it should tell you what your results should be weekly, monthly, daily, every quarter, like have it broken down. Like, I plan to generate this many, leads. I want to close this many deals. If I want to, generate that many leads, I need to call this many people per week. Like, I'm going to spend, 3 hours a week just outbound prospecting to my database. Okay, great. In 3 hours, I want to be able to make, let's just say, 15 calls an hour, 45 calls a week, right? And you'll probably speak to about 30% of those people. So I'm going to talk to 15 people. I'm not saying that's what your business plan should be, but I'm just like saying you need to have it be that specific. And then you need to track your results every single day, right? Like when I started, luckily I got involved in a training program with Josh Sigmund, one of my lenders here in San Antonio. Shout out to Josh. He got me involved with the core training. And, I think training is great, going into like a coaching program is great. But I'll be honest with you guys. I mean, like if you can be consistent and, hold yourself accountable yourself, really the core training is super simple. I mean, basically they give you what's called a greatness tracker. And all it is it just tracks your activity that you do every day and it rolls up into the week. And it just keeps you focused on what you need to be doing. And so, like on there, it had how many calls that, I made. I write the names of the people that I had called that day into my greatness tracker. It asked, how many face-to-face appointments, I had gone on that week. And so I had a goal of how many face-to-face, like in-person meetings that I wanted to have with people. And so I just tracked those efforts every single day. Because again, if you don't do that, like a day will turn into a week of unproductivity. A week will turn into a month. And then months just turn to where you don't end up doing anything for your career and you think that it doesn't work. So, I mean, you really got to track those efforts daily. You got to be consistent with it. I had, these greatness trackers printed out. I had probably 10 of them at any given time. I'd grab a new one every single week. And, and that's how I was able to stay consistent with my prospecting efforts. I could also track my results. Like I could start to actually analyze my business and realize, okay, well, if I made, 50 calls, out of those 50 calls, I could set up 5 in-person appointments. And when I say an in-person appointment, that was like taking somebody to coffee, taking somebody to lunch, whatever it was, just so that way I could be face-to-face with people. And, and again, that goes a long way because that's how you're going to start generating referrals and, people that when they're ready to buy, they're going to call you, but you got to do that kind of stuff. And so I could see, well, if I do this, this is what it leads to. And, this is how many referrals that I've gotten over the course of a week or over the course of a month. And you can kind of like start to really figure out your business. And then, it's not right away. You're not going to know this month 1 or month 2, but if you consistently track your daily efforts for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, you're going to start to see patterns. And those patterns are going to help you better understand what you need to do moving forward if you want to have more success or continue your success. So anyways, that's just something that I think is super important, tracking your efforts and your results daily. And I think I've actually got a video. I'll go back and look. And if I've got the video I'm thinking of, I'll put it in the description here. But where it actually talks about the greatness tracker and how to fill it out. I had a free version of one where you could just print it out and start using it. I know a lot of people probably now watching this want access to that. Literally, I think if you just Google greatness tracker core training, you probably could find it on Google. So, but either way, I'll go try and see if I can find that. Moving on to the next one, not being consistent in lead generation and prospecting activities. So here's the thing is I think, so many times, agents will say, okay, you know what, I am going to start doing, open houses. Let's just use that as an example, right? Well, I'm going to do open houses. That's going to be my strategy, to get buyer leads. And they'll do an open house like one weekend, but then, they don't do it again for 2 weekends, or, they might've gotten 20 leads from it. And then they're like, all right, that's great, but then they don't do it again. And the most impact my business has ever had was whenever I did something consistently. Like when I got big and heavy into Facebook ads, right? It didn't start right away that I was having success, but after I started doing the same thing and I had the same budget for, months on end, 3, 4, 5, 6 months to where I didn't even touch it. Like I'd set it up, just kind of let it go. And then I started, working those leads, but I had a system going. That's when the results started to come. And same thing for like, if Facebook ads isn't your thing, like, maybe it's for sale by owner calls or whatever, you got to time block your calendar to where whatever it is that you're doing, you do it at the same time, the same day, every single week without fail, right? Like that is your thing. That's what you're committing to. Now that doesn't mean that you might not miss one or something like that in a month, or maybe you have a sick day or something like that. But in general, you've got to set up your schedule to where it's like happening the same things, the same times, every single day. You've got to set a system up like that, because if you don't, you will set yourself up for failure, because then you're thinking, well, I'm doing all of this stuff, but I'm not getting results. But if you actually look back at it, I think, as humans, we just get caught up with thinking like, well, we're doing, all of this stuff, but realistically, unless you are consistent and you're following a time block, like you probably are doing less than what you might think that you are, right? as far as like what that lead generation source might be. And so I just encourage you, definitely be consistent. Don't pick too many things. Like, it's hard to be consistent if you do too much. And that's going to be, I think, number 10 that we'll talk about that. But again, if you just pick, a couple things, like you don't need to do a whole lot to be an effective realtor. You just need to pick 1 to 2 things that, again, you want to do, that you're excited to do. Because if you're excited to do them, you're not going to have a problem being consistent with it. And if you're excited to do it, you're going to go out there and, like, if it was open house, you love doing open houses, you're going to figure out the best way to do open houses. You're going to get better at it as you go. And then the more consistent you get, the better your results will be. For instance, just because I've been talking about open houses, one of my biggest open house tips, and I'll link us to, I've got a video about open houses and what my process is with them. But one of the biggest benefits when you do an open house is you really want to pick maybe the same neighborhood, maybe it's the same zip code, but you don't want to do it sporadically throughout the city, and you don't want to just do it for like your listings or your friends' listings. Like, you want to be very specific. And when you do that, like, say if you said, tell yourself, I just want to do this particular neighborhood that you've identified is a good neighborhood. We talk about in that video how to identify the right neighborhoods. You want to be in like close to the average price point. You don't want to be too high. You don't want to be, super low. Just because, again, you're going to get more leads through the door if it's a $200,000 house like here in San Antonio versus if it's a $450,000 house. And then typically if you go too high, most of those people, they usually have realtor friends, right? Whereas if you go at the average or just below, a lot of those people are not going to have friends that are realtors. There's things like, you don't want to go in a gated neighborhood. You want to go to houses that are close to, big intersections, big streets. You want to look for that type of stuff. You want to be strategic about it. And so again, when you're consistent though, the benefit of that, if you're like saying in the same neighborhood, you're going to get neighbors that are going to start to see those same signs, and hopefully you're branding yourself. I think we've talked about branding yourself and how important that is. They're going to see those same signs. Don't just use the generic like open house red and white signs you get from Home Depot. Find signs that brand you. So that way, if you're doing it every single weekend, you're in the same area, you're same zip code or something at least, they're going to, people are going to drive by them and be like, oh, I saw that person sign out there last week. Oh, I saw that person sign out there Thursday, and now they're out here Saturday. Like, that's when you start to see the results. People are going to come to your open houses now just because they want to meet you. They want to see who you are. And so, again, all of the results that you do, or all of the efforts that you do, are so much better when you're consistent with them over a long period of time. So that was tip number 6. Number 7, discounting your services to friends and family. This is a big one, guys. And like, I know when you're a new agent, most of the time, the people you're going to help out early on are going to be friends and family. And you feel like, oh, well, I owe it to them because they're my sister, they're my, whatever, best friend, they're, this or that I need to discount my services. And some people I've heard, they like do it for 1%, or they do it for, half of what they should earn. And I'm like, that's not the right way to look at it, right? I think you have to, if it makes you feel bad that you're charging them what a normal realtor charges for their services, then just go over the top and treat them, as best as you can, right? Like, treat them better than what you normally would. So that way you feel justified in asking for the commission that you feel. And that's only if you feel like you should be asking less, because especially when you're getting early, just started, you need every dollar that you can to be able to, not only feed your family and stay surviving, but to also feed your business, right? Like, you need to be able to reinvest back into your business. And so when you start, working early on and not taking your full commission, that can seriously hurt your business. And it also sets a precedent that, like, okay, well, now if I gave this person 1%, well, I got to do it again for, this person, because they're friends with each other. They know, they talk, right? Like, that's not the way to start your business off. And so you want to start by charging 3%, and then, or, whatever it is in your area. I know some people watch 2.5% in their area, but charge the right percentage. And just tell them, hey, but you know what, this is what I do for, you and all of my clients. I'm going to give the best level of service, whatever it might be, right? Like, work extra hard for them so you feel extra justified for doing whatever it is that you're going to be doing as far as that commission. So that's my suggestion there. Definitely don't discount services to friends and family. It would be my suggestion. If you want to pay for, like, a nice closing gift or something like that. Like, they close on the deal and you get them a $250 Ring doorbell or something. Hey, feel free, go do that. But I mean, seriously, I see, hear people discounting their services in half, which, I mean, that's like you're giving somebody $4,000 or, 35, and like, that's excessive. I think, because you are giving them a good level of service, you shouldn't feel bad taking what, is normally to come to a real estate agent. So, all right. Number 8, focusing too much time on social media. Here's one that I think, so many agents get caught up in, especially now. I think when I was getting started, social media was still big, but it wasn't as big as it is today. So I didn't have this much of a distraction as there is today. But a lot of agents, they think that like if I just work, if I just do things on social media all the time, like I'm going to be, getting a ton of business from it. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Like, you've got to, prospect, you've got to pick up the phone, you've got to go meet people in person, take them to coffee, take them to lunch. Like, yes, social media can help your business. And I'm not saying to not put some effort into it. But at the end of the day, there's just so many like gurus and agents that are like, well, they're blowing up on social media and everybody thinks like that's the way to do it these days. And I'll be honest, like, it's not like at this point, my business, like I'm in a different spot than what most new agents are. So like, I think that you can kind of use that to scale your business. But early on, it's so much about the relationship building. And it's so much about the relationship building all the time. But I promise you guys, if you jump too much into social media early on, you're not really focused on just gaining and building better relationships face to face, on the phone at the minimum, you're going to be hurting yourself. Social media is amazing to be able to get, a message out to a lot of people. You can even send, messages through the platforms, but it's not going to be as relationship focused as, picking up the phone, talking to them, taking them to lunch, all that kind of stuff. So again, don't focus too much time on social media. Have a strategy, have that be part of your business plan, that this is what I'm going to do for social media, throughout the week, just to kind of put updates out there, stay top of mind. But don't think that that's your end all be all strategy with getting into real estate, because it will hurt. I've talked to a lot of agents that like, when I ask them what their strategy is, they're like, oh, social media. And I say, well, what are you doing? Like how has that worked for you? And they're like, well, I mean, it's going a little slow, but and I'm like, no buts, like that's, you can't, like that's not an effective strategy. That's a supplement to something else that you need to be doing, but that can't be your main strategy, especially early on. All right. Time management, not having a routine. So this week, we kind of talked about this earlier, but I think that time management is so important, especially if you're a new agent. You probably came from an industry where, maybe you worked 9 to 5, maybe you had a boss that told you what you had to do. So you had some things in place to which kept you organized, or like, you knew what you had to do. But in real estate, it gets to be really tough because you're your own boss. Nobody's going to tell you what to do, when to do it. And so sometimes you can get very off track with things, and you can almost think like, again, you're doing more than you're actually doing if you're not focused and you're not time blocking your schedule. I've had days where, the whole day goes by and I'm like, my gosh, I feel like I didn't get anything done. And it's because I didn't start that day with a plan, right? Like maybe I got off of my focus. I didn't, stick to my business plan was telling me I needed to do, and I was just doing something else. And that whole day goes by and you're working the whole time, but you didn't really do anything that was meaningful. And so often, if you don't have as part of your schedule time blocked times where like, hey, my prospecting hour is from 1 to 2, I will never miss it. I will definitely do that every single day. Like if you don't have something like that to where nothing else is going to interfere, things will always come up. They'll always get in the way. You have to time block your schedule, and you have to have a routine. Because again, it's the same thing. Like if, you do some things some days, but then you don't do it again, the next day, it's harder to do it the day after that, right? Because now you're like, well, I've already missed one day. Like you can't do that. It's almost like, if somebody's got like an addiction or something, or like, and they go have a drink, right? Like maybe they've, gotten rid of alcohol in their life or something, and they've been sober for a year. I promise you, if they go have a drink a year and a day, it's gonna be a lot harder that year and 2 days to stay committed to not drinking at that point, because now it's like, well, they've already done it, right? So you have to stick to a schedule, but make it something to where, and I think the other part is like sometimes people make their time block too much, right? Like you time block your whole day and you time block so many different activities. Well, now you're setting yourself for failure on the opposite end. Because there's no way. You've got to set free time where, hey, you've got time to just do random stuff that you need. But on the important aspects of your business, like prospecting, or whatever it might be that you're focused on at that time, you've got to put a set amount of time in your schedule. Even if it's the only thing that you time block for the whole week. Like maybe your schedule, maybe your strategy is going to be open houses. Well, time block, one time in your account. Like I will not miss this every single week. And start there, right? And then when you're effective doing it with that, well, now you can add on something else. But again, don't get too much and start time blocking your entire day, but make sure that the most important things in your business are time blocked on your calendar so you don't miss them, and you can set up that routine to where, it gets consistent and then you just don't miss it. But I think they say, there's studies that talk about how long it takes to set up a routine, a habit. And I think, they say it's like 2 to 3 weeks or something, and then it gets a little bit easier. So, I mean, it's not easy to do this, but once you do it, I promise you, it's so much easier. It's like me doing these Monday and Tuesday masterminds, right? There's been so many times where I'm like, I'm not going to do it this week or whatever, but then it'll be like, I know if I do that, then it's gonna be harder for me to, do it again the next week, or maybe there'll be a time a month from now and I'll be like, well, I can miss it. It's not that but because I do this every single week, I just literally, make everything else in my life revolve around this, right? Like next week, I'm already trying to think of how I'm going to set this thing up. Like Monday, we literally close on our new house. And then Tuesday, I'm flying to Las Vegas, and I got to figure out how I'm going to still make this thing happen. And so we'll see, right? Like I'm not going to miss it. It might have to be at a different time if I'm on the plane, or if I'm just landing, but we're going to figure something out. But either way, again, you've got to definitely focus on time management, setting up a routine. All right. Brings us to our last one, and this is trying to do too many things. This could mean too many lead generation activities. This could mean, too many services that you're signing up for, all sorts of things. And I'm guilty on all of this, right? Like I've signed up for so many things, and at so many times my focus is spread so thin because I'm trying to like do way too much, right? Versus just like looking at it like, okay, well, hey, if I focus on this for 3 months, I'm going to be very effective at it. I can make better judgments, on the effectiveness of the system or the platform of the lead generation. And then if I want to continue doing it past 3 months or 6 months, then great. But what ends up happening is like during those 3 months, we end up, instead of doing one thing, we sign up for 5 things, and then we can't track the effectiveness, and we can't get better or really know how effective that thing was. And so that's something. Trying to do too many things can seriously hurt you. I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's great to be diversified, right? Not in this sense. Maybe with your money, yes, diversify your money. But for your efforts in real estate, because we have such a limited amount of time and focus that we can spend on the business, you've got to be very focused on your results. And so there was something that I was trying to think about how to put it in analogy. So, it's not an analogy, it's a saying. It's basically when they say, we so often overestimate how much we can do in a year, but then we underestimate how much we can do in 10 years, right? Like it's the same saying, now take it on a smaller level, right? Like we overestimate what we can do in 1 month, but then we underestimate what the power of doing something spread out through a year is. If you set up your business plan early on, you identify those key indicators that are going to move your business, you should only have a few of those that you're going to try throughout the year. So that way you can be effective and, give the most attention and time to each one of those different things. And so again, trying to do too many things can seriously hurt your business. I would say, be effective, start small, start consistently with all of those different things. So that brings us to the very end there, guys. I'm going to look over here. I want to see if I missed any chat here. Let's go to our chat. What did you guys think? I'm curious to know what you thought of this new streaming platform. I guess my chat was closed, so I don't even know if you guys were typing. Let me actually go to YouTube and see if I missed some chats, missed some Facebook. Let's see. Only use. All right. So let's go to Facebook first. Here we go. All right, cool. We got a few comments. Great so far. Perfect. Thank you. Let's go to YouTube. All right, guys. Cool. Oh, lots of stuff on YouTube. Perfect. You're fancy. Perfect. I love it. All right, good morning. Everything looks good. Loud and clear on your phone. I love it. The lighting and lighting look cool. Perfect. A lot better than Zoom. So are you doing YouTube Live and Facebook in the side? Yep, we sure are. Awesome. Failing forward. Good stuff happens on the streets. That's right, Tim. Tim, never forget that. I told him, man, you got to hit the streets. And every time he's been out there on the streets, whether it's just like, working inside of a Starbucks or whatever, like things happen. Like I remember we were going to some random house. I couldn't even tell you the full story. I don't even remember. I think it was for a listing appointment that maybe we got off of Facebook, and Tim was a brand new agent. And, I remember him being discouraged because we went to the house that we had set an appointment with this guy for. He was supposed to be there, but he wasn't there. It was like $100,000 house or something. And we went to the house and he's not there. And I was like, I think Tim was a little discouraged at first. And I'm like, man, don't worry about it. Like, when you're out here, you're trying, you might, think that it didn't work. But I think that day we ended up meeting somebody, right? It was somebody like passing out door flyers or something like that. And I know now what had happened to that agent. I think Tim actually has him as part of his team now on EXP, if I remember correctly. But I think even at the time, like he was passing out stuff and we'd asked him like, well, hey, how do you, how do you work? Like, what do you, or what's the effectiveness of this? And it was basically somebody that was going around on doors and putting stuff, kind of like spamming people, I guess, doing the door marketing. And, but he actually said it was very effective. It gave us some ideas. I didn't end up using any of those at the time, but I told him, I was like, man, you can't be discouraged. You're out and about, you're doing work. It's so much better than just, sitting in your house, getting distracted and watching Netflix, or something like that, right? Like you're trying stuff, who knows what have come out of it. And every time I'm just out doing stuff, good things come from it. So again, I love that, Tim. Awesome. See you in Vegas. Yep. If it's not on your schedule, it doesn't exist. Absolutely. David, he's being honest, guilty, currently narrowing down to focus. I love it, David. Good stuff. I like it. Was confused and missed the first few minutes when it brought me to YouTube. Hey, no worries, David. Well, once it's done, I think with the live, or maybe even during the live, you should be able to rewind it, and you can, if you don't want to necessarily watch it right live, say if you get here a few minutes late, just rewind to the beginning and you can start, and then it'll eventually catch you up once we're done with the stream. So let's see. Go back to the basics. That's right. What was your budget on Facebook ads? So Laura, good question. I mean, I'll be honest, when I got into the point of doing Facebook ads, I was already doing pretty well in real estate before I started doing that. So I had a pretty high budget. I think at one point it got up to where I was spending about $4,000 to $5,000 per month for Facebook ads. But I started with probably a few hundred dollars a month. And at the end of the day, a lot of the trainings and stuff like that you're going to do on Facebook, they're going to tell you, hey, you can get leads for $5 or so per lead, maybe $6, $7, $8 on average for a lead on Facebook if you're doing the right types of lead generation. But just realize, I mean, like our conversion rate for the team was probably about 2% or less, right? So that means like 1 out of 50 leads or less. Now, me personally, if I'm working every single lead myself, like, and same thing for you, you can probably do a little bit better than that. Maybe say 2 to 3%, I would, but you're still looking at like 1 out of 40 to 1 out of 50 leads, which again is a great return on your investment if you're working all of those leads. Because if you're getting them at $5, $6, $7 a lead, and even if you have to do 50 of them, it's $250 to $350 to get a deal, or at least maybe a client, right? It's worth it. If your average commission's $6,000 or whatever, or even if it's just, a lot of the times you're going to get people and they think they want to buy, but they end up renting, you only make a few $100s, you're going to get that relationship, and you're going to start maybe getting to be part of their circle to get you referrals. So a lot of times you can't just initially look at like, what the initial return on investment is. When you're a new agent, again, it's just, kind of doing that consistently and really putting effort, trying to get better at that one thing at a time. And then over time, as you start to make more money from it, you can increase your budget, and you're going to get more leads because now you're more effective. So early on, though, if you're just starting and you wanted to do something on Facebook, my recommendation has always been, instead of just going out there and getting random leads right away, is to try and do some campaigns where you're targeting your sphere of influence and the people that you already know on Facebook. Because here's the thing is, if you have to have a Facebook business profile to do ads, and typically Facebook will hold back your reach on your business profile unless you're paying for ads. But fortunately, the ads are fairly inexpensive, especially if you're just targeting people that are already, friends of your page, or, that you've already got inside of your ecosystem. And so you can, hit all of your sphere of influence, maybe 200-300 people for very cheap, less than $5 each time. And so at that point, you just got to figure out like what it is that you want to send to those people. And that would be my first thing, is if I only wanted to spend maybe $100 or a couple $100 a month on Facebook, I would just target the people that already know, like, and trust me. Because again, if you're, wanting to go out there and get random leads, like cold leads, as I would call it, people that don't know you yet, you're going to have to get a lot of them to be effective, and you're going to have to learn really quickly of how to work them. Speed to lead is super important. You got to call them within 5-10 minutes or reach out to them. And so there's all sorts of things that you're going to learn when you start going to cold marketing, versus if you just try and put yourself in front of those people that already know, like, and trust you, in addition to the prospecting, in addition to the calling and all that kind of stuff. So cool. I hope that helps. Let's see, what else do we got? Vegas. That's right. That's how I found you. Awesome. Yeah, you sure did, Laura. It was you were a Facebook lead. That's so funny. Like I say, at the height of when we were doing Facebook, we were probably closing about an equal amount of deals as I was closing for my referral and sphere of influence. So, I'd close about 40 deals sphere of influence, and we were closing on track to do about 40 deals from Facebook. And that was our biggest source. But I had most of those Facebook leads going out to my team at that time, and I was just focused on my sphere of influence. But to get 40 deals, we had to have a pretty high budget, but it worked out. But the only problem, again, where I think that the return on investment is great, if you're an individual agent and you're spending this money on Facebook, then yeah, $250 to $350 to get a closing, it's super worth it. But then, at least the problem that I had, even though we were closing a lot of deals on Facebook, they were going out to my team, which, there was on a 50-50 split. So I wasn't getting the full, $6,000 or $8,000 commission as a team leader. It was half that. Plus then we still had a lot of overhead as far as, we were having an inside sales agent call the leads as opposed to having the buyer's agents call them. We had an office, all sorts of stuff that we were doing, client parties. And when you end up breaking that all down, it cost, it wasn't a cost-effective thing to keep that going. But as an individual agent, I definitely think that it's a viable strategy, but just make sure that you're getting good training on how to do it, and you're not just wasting your money boosting posts or something like that when you don't really know what you're doing. So, but cool. All right, guys. Well, I think that's about it. I don't see anything else, at least on YouTube. Let me just double check back on Facebook and see if anybody else typed in anything over there. But cool. Well, if you're watching the replay of this and you like this better, still put it in the comments what you think. Give these videos a like. If you're on YouTube watching this, I think right now, let's see, how many people do we have on YouTube? We've got, I can't even tell. I think we've got 15 people or something like that, maybe on YouTube, but I don't see any likes. Maybe it's just my app. But if you can hit the thumbs up button on here on YouTube, I think that'll really help out. And if you're not already, make sure you subscribe to my channel and then hit that little bell notification next to it on YouTube. And that way, whenever I go live, which right now I'm always going to go live on Mondays, but I do actually have plans now that I got this whole thing set up and figured out to maybe go live even more frequently. So make sure you hit that bell. That way you get notified whenever I do go live, and also whenever I post a video. So you'll get notifications of that I posted a new video as well on your YouTube app. Or I think it might even send you an email. So anyways, guys, I hope that this was a good little deal for you. I'm going to keep trying probably some new things too on the streaming. So just to kind of like I brought in that little slideshow to make it a little bit more exciting. I'm going to try a couple of cool things that I've seen other people do just to try and, make this interesting for you guys. But again, I always appreciate, you supporting and, being here and checking out the channel. And this has been a lot of fun. I wouldn't keep doing this if it wasn't fun. And so I just appreciate you guys as much as I've gotten a lot of people reaching out saying they're so thankful that I do the Monday and Tuesday calls. I'm thankful for you guys. So really thanks again so much for chiming in, for tuning in, and we will see you either on the Tuesday call or I'll see you next week on the next Monday call. So